Well, guys, your girl finally made it to Midgar.
Final Fantasy VII Remake is finally getting its first piece of add-on content since its launch about a million years ago in April 2020. Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, just rolls off the tongue that title, is a PS5 upgrade to the remake that includes Episode Intermission. This expansion takes place alongside the events of the main game and stars the incomparable Yuffie Kisaragi, making her first appearance in the rebooted universe. She's an elite ninja operative working for the Wutai government, on a mission to steal the Shinra Electric Power Company's most powerful materia, naturally. Together with her partner, new character Sonon Kusakabe, the two are sneaking behind enemy lines while Midgar is preoccupied with the fallout from the bombing of Mako Reactor 5. Meaning, players will see a mix of familiar and brand new faces and locations. We were lucky enough to get a bit of a preview of the new content ahead of its launch next month, so here's some brand new info and gameplay from Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade's Episode Intermission to feast your eyes and ears on. I will never get used to saying that title. Whew.
My name is Yuffie, materia hunter and elite special forces operative for the new Wutai government.
The preview we saw began as Yuffie reaches Midgar in order to make contact with her informants in Avalanche. Now, this is a different branch of Avalanche than the one run by FF7's Barrett. That cell is actually viewed by other members as being on the more extreme end of the scale, so it'll be interesting to see a different side to the organisation here and meet some of its other members. Anyway, Yuffie is introduced,
Your full support! We got this!
humming her own theme tune of course, as she first approaches the outskirts of Midgar. She really does look perfect too, wearing an adorable Moogle cape and sporting her signature super confident attitude. Exploring Midgar with Yuffie doesn't just mean seeing it through a new pair of eyes. As the world's greatest ninja, Yuffie is super agile, so she can traverse Midgar in many ways, including swinging from ropes, sliding down shortcuts, and climbing over scaffolding. She can also use her throwing star to break boxes and recover items from far away by pressing triangle. So Yuffie can get to and explore some previously unseen areas of Midgar, but we will get to revisit some favourite locations too, including the Sector 7 slums. There'll be a bunch of different activities and side quests to do here, which includes some nods that original FF7 fans will enjoy. The first is a quest that sees Yuffie challenged to find flyers for the Happy Turtle. No doubt a reference to the Turtle's Paradise flyers you could hunt down all over the world in the original Final Fantasy VII, in return for prizes at the actual Turtle's Paradise bar in Wutai. The Happy Turtle, incidentally, was the name of a shop in Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core, so it's a bit of a 2-for-1 FF7 reference that's been reimagined here. On your way to tracking down all of the flyers with Yuffie in Intermission, you'll be dealing with the cats that rule Sector 7, and by the looks of it, run into and maybe even have a chat with everyone's favourite cat lover, Wedge. But is that Bigums, Reggie or Smalls with him? The people need answers. It's me, I'm people.
Gotcha! Ah!
You look about ready to die of boredom. Wanna play Fort Condor?
Fort Condor?
The other new feature of Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade Episode Intermission that we saw during our preview that also calls back to the original game is Fort Condor. The Fort Condor strategy minigame from the original FF7, which was folded into the main story of the game as your party defended it from Shinra, is reimagined here as a board game that's currently taking Midgar by storm. It's a 2-player battle of wits where you attack your opponent's base while simultaneously defending your own. You select the board and the units you want to use, and then spend ATB charges to deploy those units in the available space when the time is right. Just like in the original game, units fight automatically once they meet an enemy, but the trick is knowing what types of unit to use and where, so that they'll be as useful as possible. Units fall into 3 different types: Vanguard, Ranged, or Defense, and have different costs to use. Different unit types will be best used against opposing enemy types. In addition to base units, you'll also have materia to cast spells, but you can only use these once per battle, so again, it's all about timing. The music here is a nice little throwback too. When not playing board games, Yuffie's combat style enables both close quarters and long-range encounters using her classic oversized throwing star weapon. She strikes at close range with the throwing star by pressing square, or you can hold square to continue attacking while putting distance between Yuffie and the enemy. Pressing triangle will make Yuffie throw her weapon at the enemy, and it'll automatically return to her hand after a certain amount of time. Or you can press triangle again to make a comeback sooner. While the throwing star is away, you can still fight with square, using it to perform a long-range ninjutsu attack. These are non-elemental by default, but the elemental ninjutsu ability can change it to ice, lightning, wind or fire, so you can just take advantage of an enemy's elemental weakness. Naturally, Yuffie also has a long list of abilities at her disposal too, like Windstorm, a gust of wind that damages nearby enemies and launches them towards you, Art of War, which hits the enemy with multiple blows and means subsequent attacks do increase damage, and, of course, Steel. I mean, would she even be Yuffie if she didn't?
Get your butt over here!
The enigmatic Sonon cannot be directly controlled in battle, but Yuffie can give him orders. Some of his abilities include Twirling Lunge, a spinning attack that will increase an enemy's chance of staggering, and Fighting Spirit, which focuses on dealing damage to one foe in particular. Episode Intermission also introduces a new mechanic with Yuffie and Sonon's combined combat styles: Synergy. By pressing L2, you can bring together their attacks, making them more powerful and making enemies easier to stagger. Both characters will need available ATB charges to successfully synergize, but early on at least you can perform synergized versions of Yuffie's Art of War and Windstorm attacks. They definitely look cooler with 2 people working together on them too.
I can't take this anymore!
Of course, both Yuffie and Sonon have limit breaks as well. Yuffie has Bloodbath, possibly a renamed version of her Bloodfest limit break in the original game, and Sonon has Way of the Dragon, where he uses his staff to whack the enemy with multiple blows. You'll need these against some of the tougher enemies in Intermission, which, just like the main game, includes some enemies fans of the OG game will recognise. One such foe is this sort of mini-boss, the Leprechaun, though old school fans will probably know it better as that one evil looking ostrich. There's also a Gigantipede to fight, an even tougher looking boss where synergizing will definitely be needed to pile on some pressure, and mimic some moves last seen used by Cloud in Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. In the grand tradition of huge robot enemies in FF7, lightning attacks are the way to go here. So it's probably just as well that Yuffie has apparently picked up a Ramuh summon somewhere along the road. A summon that also appeared in the original game, Ramuh can be called upon to fight alongside you during certain battles for a set amount of time. You can't control him directly, but you can use your ATB charges to give him certain commands. One of these is Voltaic Lance, which calls upon a bolt of lightning to deal damage to nearby enemies for a short amount of time. And of course, before Ramuh disappears, he'll perform his ultimate attack, Judgment Bolt, a storm that covers the entire battlefield and decimates all enemies with, what else? An electric attack.
You see that?
That's how ninjas do it.
Yep.
Ah, since you're here, you wouldn't happen to have any Condor coins on you, would you?
So, some other things to note from our preview. Condor coins are mentioned as an alternative form of currency that will be accepted by certain vendors in exchange for oddities and commodities. They'll likely play a role similar to Moogle medals in the remake, but with a special Fort Condorian twist. You guys don't happen to have any huge materia lying around, do you?
Yeesh, this town's a total dump. I thought Midgar was supposed to be the marvel of the modern world.
And another thing to note is that we got a quick glimpse of a Genova clone quietly making their way through Midgar. Seeding events still to come in the remake. Or are they?
No. How dare you? How dare you stand in my way?
It wasn't touched on in the preview, but clearly from trailers and other bits released from Intergrade and Intermission, it plans on folding in characters and events from Final Fantasy VII's Vincent Valentine-led PlayStation 2 spin-off, Dirge of Cerberus. A bold move, as that game was not the best received by Final Fantasy fans. But we've seen that Nero the Sable and Weiss the Immaculate clearly have roles to play in Intergrade, the former fighting Yuffie and Sonon in a trailer. I mean, you could say that these events have been seeded in the remake's main game, when the Sector 7 plate collapse led to holes opening up paths to underground secret test sites, where we had to go rescue Wedge and fight numerous test subjects. These could likely all be part of the Deep Ground project that led to Nero and Weiss's creation by Shinra. I guess we'll find out more when Intermission launches, but I have to say I'm not entirely sold on Dirge of Cerberus becoming remake canon. However, it might all lead to our first glimpse of Vincent Valentine, so, you know, it's not all bad. Also, quick side note by the way, I am really excited to fight Scarlet in her shiny Proudclad armor.
Me to present the latest innovation in Shinra battle armor.
What the?
This'll be a memory to cherish for the rest of your lives. All 30 seconds of them.
So that's all we know of Intergrade's episode Intermission so far. But luckily there's not too much longer to wait until the episode is out. What do you hope to see from it? What are your thoughts on the Deep Ground storyline being included? Let us know in the comments and subscribe to keep an eye on the channel for more Final Fantasy VII Remake content coming very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye!